The kitten's cries had lured Dr. Eleni Papadakis into the alley off Adrianou Street, but the sight that greeted her when she arrived was not feline at all. A tawny, one-eared mutt stood over the mewling bundle, head cocked, amber eyes bright with concern. The dog's ribs were a map of hunger, his matted coat a chronicle of nights spent under arcades and broken marble, and yet he neither bolted nor growled when Eleni crouched beside him. Instead, he nosed the kitten gently toward her, as if entrusting a treasure. Eleni scooped the kitten into her carrier. "Good boy," she murmured. The dog's tail wagged once, tentative. She unlooped the makeshift leash she used for strays and coaxed it around his neck. "You're coming too." Athens was full of dogs like him, remnants of economic collapse and bureaucratic neglect, animals that wandered from Plaka cafes to the National Garden with municipal tags and legion names from sympathetic shopkeepers. Tourists treated them as mascots. Athenians, especially the old, whispered stranger things, that certain strays formed an unbroken chain back to antiquity, guarding secrets the city dared not remember. Eleni, rational to a fault, dismissed such myths. She ran the small, overworked clinic on Era Odos because she had seen true, ordinary suffering in fur and feathers. Stories of street dogs warding off phantoms were comforting nonsense. Even so, when the mutt padded willingly beside her through Monastiriki Square, she felt an inexplicable prickle in the back of her skull, as though the Parthenon's columns were watching. She named him Brontes, after the Cyclopean smith who forged Zeus's thunderbolts. It was a joke, inspired by the thundercloud bruise she found beneath the dog's shoulder blade during examination. While the X-ray developed, Eleni stitched a minor gash, humming. The print slid from the machine moments later, and she fell silent. Something within the dog's thoracic cavity glowed white as magnesium, a coiled branch of brilliance impossible to categorize. It wasn't metal. Metal would have clearer contours. It wasn't stone. Stone wouldn't fluoresce with such intensity. The shape resembled a lightning bolt stylized in archaic frescoes, jagged, tapering, alive. Radiology professors she consulted by text accused her of miscalibration. She retook the image. The bolt burned brighter. Brontes lay calm, tongue lolling, oblivious to the storm caged inside him. By midnight, she stood on her balcony overlooking the Keramikos ruins, staring at the printed plates while cicadas droned like faulty electrical lines. Finally, she dialed Nikos Levendis, curator at the National Archaeological Museum, and her ex-boyfriend, because incredulity outweighed pride. He arrived 20 minutes later on his scooter, helmet dangling, still wearing the latex gloves from cataloguing Hellenistic figurines. Nikos traced the luminous fissure with a finger. "This can't be an implant. I thought maybe someone smuggled antiquities inside the doll," Eleni said. "We've seen gold coins hidden in parrots. But you'd need a surgical scar. There isn't one." Nikos's voice dropped. "You know the theft last month? The bronze Thunderbolt stolen from storage? Everyone assumed black market collectors. That replica? Not a replica. The dating came back 5th century BCE. We kept it quiet." Eleni looked at Brontes asleep on a blanket. "You think this is the same object? Or the original? The myths are literal." He hesitated. "Zeus's final bolt lost when the Romans closed the temples, swallowed by time." Eleni laughed, brittle. "My dog swallowed a god's weapon?" Or it grew inside him. The absurdity was too much. She poured Retsina, forced Nikos to drink. Yet after he left, the X-rays still blazed on her desk like a challenge. Morning brought customers and paperwork, making disbelief viable. But at noon, 2 figures entered. A rail-thin woman in a saffron shawl and a broad man whose beard was sculpted into whorls. Their polite smiles felt rehearsed. "Dr. Paperkis," the woman said, "we represent the Philomantic Society. You recently acquired a stray-bearing municipal tag 630 AA. Eleni's heartbeat stuttered. Municipal records were not public. I treat many rescues. It is vital we reunite the animal with his caretakers, the bearded man said, producing forged city credentials. Show me an adoption claim, Eleni countered. They exchanged glances. The woman sighed. Then perhaps we negotiate. That dog carries something our order has sought for centuries, a legacy of enlightenment. You are pragmatic. Tell us your price. Eleni's pragmatic streak vanished. He isn't for sale. The bearded man's voice hardened. We will return tonight. They left. Cold draft lingered like aftershocks. Brontes wandered from his pen and leaned against her leg. Eleni stroked his scarred ear, mind racing. Athens bred societies like olives, some benign, some poisonous. The Philomantics were rumored to fuse stoic thought with oracular experiments, chasing relics to access divine frequencies. Another name surfaced, the Keramikos Ark, a splinter cult that believed stray dogs were reincarnations of Cerberus's offspring, each guarding a gate to the chthonic. If those groups suspected Brontes contained more than symbolism, she had to move. At closing, she loaded him and the kitten, now robust, into her battered Fiat. Wind buffeted Syntagma Square, toppling protest placards. Thunder grumbled, although the forecast promised sun. She drove northwest, destination, her grandfather's shuttered stone house in Egaleo foothills. He had been a partisan courier during the war, carving hideaways in rock. The cellar still smelled of resistance. Rain started as she unlocked the groaning door. Bronte sniffed the dusty hearth, then circled and lay, alert. Eleni lit candles, promising herself she would call the authorities. What would she say? My stray dog contains a prehistoric lightning weapon, and secret cultists want him? She pictured the dispatcher's face. Instead, she phoned the only peer who might believe, Dr. Athena Paganis, professor of comparative mythology at the University of Thessaloniki, a woman convinced that Homeric epics encoded astronomical charts. Athena answered on the third ring, voice husky with espresso. Thunderbolt inside a dog, she repeated. Send me the scans. Eleni emailed them. Silence, then a low whistle. Not sculpture. That density reads closer to plasma. Living lightning. So how do I remove it without killing him? Athena paused. Maybe you don't? Maybe he's the sheath. Ancient texts speak of skin that tempers flame, the Aegis concept. The bolt requires a guardian host. Explain why he chose me. Perhaps you didn't choose the dog chose the veterinarian. A crash shattered the conversation. Glass exploded in the front room. Eleni dropped the phone, heart ricocheting. Brontes sprang up, teeth bared. A dark figure climbed through the window, flickering candlelight on a stenciled emblem, an obsidian dog skull encircled by laurels. The Keramikos Ark. Eleni grabbed the fireplace poker. The intruder lunged. Brontes intercepted mid-air, 20 kilograms of sinew propelled by ancient mandate. Jaws closed on the assailant's forearm, wrenching him sideways. The poker caught his temple. He collapsed. Outside, tires squealed. More were coming. For the second time that day, Eleni acted without thinking. She hustled Brontes and the carrier out the kitchen door, down goat paths slick with rain, into olive groves vibrating under thunder's drum. Lightning forked across the sky, startlingly similar to the X-ray's silhouette. With each flash, Brontes's coat seemed to pulse, highlighting musculature as if lit from beneath. Eleni felt static raise her hairs. Was the bolt responding to the storm or summoning it? They reached an abandoned marble quarry. Columns lay half-sculpted, victims of Ottoman taxation centuries earlier. In a pit, carved like a reversed acropolis, they hid beneath a leaning capital. Wind howled through cracks, apologetic. Eleni's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered because fear corrals logic. A male voice, calm, spoke in archaic Katharavousa Greek. Doctor, you protect what is beyond your ken. The Thunderbolt is not meant for flesh. Deliver the animal to Tiseo Square at dawn, and the Philomantic Society guarantees your safety. She almost laughed. Nothing about tonight felt safe. You broke into my clinic. That was not us. The Ark revels in chaos. We pursue illumination. Choose wisely. The line clicked dead. Brontes licked rain from her cheek. The kitten mewed indignantly inside the carrier. Dawn was 4 hours away. Eleni recalled a childhood lesson from her grandfather. When two enemies both want your bag of secrets, escape by handing them something they can't carry together. Divide the thieves. She devised a plan, likely foolish, maybe lethal. But Mythic Cities demanded mythic wages. First, she texted Nikos. Need museum transport crate. Size medium dog. Deliver to Thesio 5 a.m. No questions. He replied with a single thumbs up, scholar's curiosity overriding caution. Next, she returned to the house, collecting rope, a flare gun, and her grandfather's battered field radio that still tuned to short wave. The unconscious intruder remained where he'd fallen. Eleni secured his wrists, propped him against the hearth, and left him a note reading, "Call an ambulance when you wake," signed with a paw print. At 4:40 a.m., Athens was a hush of wet cobbles and neon halos. Eleni parked near the temple of Hephaestus, unloading Brontes in a tranquilizer-proof harness. Nikos met her with the crate, its museum sticker half peeled. He tried to pry answers, but she kissed his cheek, making him blush like a first-year grad student, and whispered, "Trust me." They positioned the crate beside the fenced ruins. Eleni opened its door. Brontes waited, sensing strategy. She slipped the field radio and flare gun inside. Footsteps echoed. The Philomantic Society emerged from the agora's shadows, saffron-robed entourage carrying copper lanterns. Opposite them, black-clad silhouettes with dog skull emblems fanned out. The Greek police would have been a welcome third party, but Eleni doubted sirens would deter zealot. Instead, she stepped onto a fallen column between factions, arms raised. "Here is your prize," she announced, voice steadier than her knees. "Brontes will enter the crate. You may examine him under museum protocols, both groups together. If either acts violently, I trigger the flare alerting authorities and every journalist in Attica to stolen antiquities." Agreed. Rival leaders eyed each other. Neither wanted publicity. Reluctant nods followed. Eleni patted Brontes. "Inside, boy." He entered the crate. She latched it but left the top hatch unsealed, just wide enough for a muzzle. The chiefs approached, flicking flashlights through the slats. "We require radiographic proof," snarled the Ark envoy. "You'll have it at the museum," Nikos interjected, wielding curator authority. The Philomantic matriarch lifted a handheld scanner, its screen exploding with white when passed over Brontes' chest. Her pupils dilated. "The charge is stable," she whispered. "We can begin attunement rituals at sunrise." Suddenly, an acolyte within the Ark drew a black market taser, jabbing it through the slats to stun Brontes. The crate jolted. Eleni screamed, but instead of whimpers, a roar of thunder tore the dawn sky. Electricity burst from the dog's body, liquefying the taser, arcing across metallic lanterns, sowing a net of blue fire between cultists. Both factions scattered, some collapsing with their hair smoking. Brontes kicked the crate door open and bounded to Eleni's side, unharmed. The bolt had awakened and was defending its vessel. Eleni yanked the flare gun, firing skyward. Crimson burst above the Acropolis. Within minutes, sirens wailed. She knelt, cradling Brontes, as police vans screeched into Thesio, officers storming the chaotic tableau of semi-conscious mystics. Detainment was messy but thorough. Cultists babbled about divine property. Officers confiscated illegal weapons and occult paraphernalia. Nikos leveraged museum prestige to vouch for Eleni's intervention, framing events as an attempted theft of a sensitive archaeological object. At the Garda headquarters downtown, Eleni endured hours of deposition. She surrendered X-rays, emails, and the dog's municipal chip data. She avoided metaphysics, stating the artifact appeared symbiotic and extracting it might kill the animal. The few officials who glimpsed the scans grew pale, muttering about consulting the Ministry of Culture. Finally, at 5 p.m, she was released, on condition Brontes remain available for study. She carried him to a waiting car Nikos's, and they drove to Mount Lycabettus, stopping at the pine-lined lookout, where all Athens unfurled like a tessellated ocean. Nikos broke the silence. The state will seize him. Not if they can't find him. He frowned. You'll run. Hide in plain sight. Street dogs have done it for centuries. As if on cue, a procession of city canines trotted up the slope. Collared strays Eleni recognized from markets, cafes, tram stops. They encircled Brontes, sniffing respectfully, forming a silent honor guard. She felt something shift in the air. An ancient conversation resuming. Nikos exhaled. The legends were true. They protect the relics because the relics protect them. Eleni knelt amid the dogs, tears mixing with laughter. She unhooked Brontes' harness. Go on, boy. Brontes nudged her once, promise in his eyes, then padded into the pack. The others closed ranks, and together they melted down the hill, tails flagging like pennants, disappearing into the labyrinth of streets where gods still napped beneath graffiti. 3 days later, Athenians awoke to news reports of inexplicable weather, isolated bolts of lightning striking only abandoned lots, power surges around dog shelters. No casualties, just scorch marks shaped like olive leaves. Eleni returned to the clinic, patching pigeons and trimming cat claws as if nothing changed. Yet every dusk she left a bowl of lamb stew on the stoop. Some mornings it remained untouched. Others it was licked spotless, and paw prints crackled faintly with residual static. Rumours spread of a tawny mutt leading other strays away from busy boulevards seconds before towers of lightning split the clouds, guiding terrified tourists to safety when storms ambushed the Acropolis. Buskers sang new rebetiko verses about the dog of thunder. One humid evening Nikos arrived with a rolled parchment. From the ministry, he said, handing it over. They're classifying the Thunderbolt under intangible heritage instead of artifact. Means they're not pursuing custody, for now. Eleni unrolled the document. A single sentence, penned in bureaucratic flourish. The animal known as Brontes shall be considered a mobile cultural phenomenon, protected under Article 23. She laughed until she cried. What will you do now? Nikos asked. Keep the door open, patch whoever limps in, and wait. For Brontes? For the next impossible patient. That night, just after closing, thunder rumbled though the sky was clear. Eleni stepped outside. At the corner lamp, Brontes stood, silhouette crowned by silent lightning licking the iron post. Beside him limped a new stray, thin and trembling. Brontes looked at Eleni, then at the dog, then back again. Request unmistakable. Eleni smiled, opening her arms wide. All right, she said into the charged air. Bring him in. The thunder quieted. The city exhaled. And on Adrianou Street, beneath neon and antiquity, guardians and healer returned to work, keeping Athens safe, one impossible miracle at a time.